Hello, hello, and welcome to the Sorry I Like This podcast. I'm Caleb, and I'm joined by my good friend Ezra. Ezra, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Caleb?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad this is like the first back at it episode that we're doing
Yeah.
a little bit. We were back last, with a couple weeks ago just to do our FF7 review. But now we're back into our normal format and ready to get into all the excitement that has been happening with news. And then also we have a new our we never even announced what our book club was, but we do have a book club today. So basically, we do have something that we're going to discuss and talk about that I'm really excited to talk about because I feel like it's going to be an interesting conversation.
It
Let's just
is.
put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, so, as far as that goes, as far as news, we got some, we got some Square Enix news, quite a lot actually from Square Enix, and then
Yeah.
we got an Xbox showcase on the horizon, and then we got a Metaphor showcase coming up, and yeah, so that and then more Square Enix stuff. So we got it is quite a Square Enix filled day. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
In case you didn't get enough Final Fantasy last time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep. Although we are talking stuff outside of FF7,
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
so we we are talking about the other side of the company, which is going to be very interesting to talk about. So
Yeah.
I guess with that, why don't we just dive in? Um, so, big thing happened. Not, but I think this was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And basically, Square Enix has reported over 140 million in losses as far as their the losses of content abandonment losses. So basically, they purged their catalog pretty much as
Yeah.
far as besides their heavy hitters probably. But we don't know because this is something that's behind closed doors. This could be
Yeah.
stuff that's like it could be announced projects, it could be unannounced projects.
Yeah.
I'm leaning more on the side of it's definitely like unannounced projects that they haven't announced. Um, and I'll dive in a little bit on that, but
Mhm.
it is very surprising to hear a little bit of just how massive this is as far as their losses go. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know, Ezra. What do you think about what's your feelings to hearing this type of news?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty I'm not going to say shocking cuz I
Mm-hmm.
do think we've seen Square Enix make moves not dissimilar to this, like with them jettisoning their entire Western, or maybe not their entire, but like most of their Western studios. Um,
Yeah, they're big ones, that's for sure.
yeah. So I think that there's precedent for this. What I actually think is super interesting about this is the fact that um, they clearly did this instead of laying off people, right?
Yeah.
They could have laid off an unknown amount of staff members, but instead they decided to restructure the company and
Mm-hmm.
abandon a bunch of projects. I think I agree. Likely most of them were unannounced games. We've heard a lot about uh, I heard about some of their HD 2D games, so like Octopath
Yeah.
Traveler and stuff like that. And those being kind of under the under the specter of cancellation. And if that's the case, the really big shame for people is going to be the Dragon Quest III remake.
Yeah.
Because that's I mean that is a I think an FF7 tier project. At least for a lot of people, it would be like that. So if that project got canned, that's disappointing. If Octopath 3 got canned, that's disappointing. If we aren't going to get another triangle strategy game, that's disappointing. Um,
Hmm.
and we really don't know what projects have been in development
Yeah.
uh, for Square Enix. Like, I think I could be wrong, but I think Kingdom Hearts 4 is the last one that we know about.
Well,
Um,
there's Dragon Quest as well.
oh there's Dragon Quest 12.
Yeah. So there's at least those two, but I agree with you. Then this is actually one of the things I was going to bring up is the fact that I feel like this current and I hadn't hinted at this in our review a couple 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
In that we're at an end of a phase of, I would say, since 2020 as far as Square Enix goes,
Mm-hmm.
um, of them releasing big titles. And what I mean by big titles, high budget titles, not fully successful in some regards, and that's one
Yeah.
of the biggest reasons why we're here at this point. But as far as this was like the last little, I mean, one you can argue that remake part 3 is a part of this phase of stuff too, but we have some time before we get remake part 3. I would put that into whatever is next up on Square Enix's slate right here, because you know from in my personal opinion, this little phase of games that we had all stemmed from pretty much a 2019 E3 showcase, right? So I remember this being pretty ingrained in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
actually, of how of how that year went. I mean, that was the year we got Avengers showcased, uh, and then Final Fantasy VII remake as well, and then we also got, I think the following year we got announced Stranger of Paradise,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Origin. We got uh, Babylon's Fall at that point. That was being highly advertised. Forspoken going on as well. And then you get the year after that, Rebirth gets announced, and then 16's marketing cycle is
Yeah.
fired up again. So essentially, we've known for a very long time what has been coming from Square Enix, right?
Yeah.
And now we don't. I mean, we got just those two titles in development, and it's interesting to see
Visions of
because I've
Mana.
been oh, Visions of Mana. Yeah, that's a
That's
good
another
point.
one.
Yep. I've been kind of wondering what's Square's next move as far as this goes. Are they going to do what they've been doing? I say at least the past 2 years, 2 to 3 years, where they haven't really done a showcase themselves, but have more spread across their projects into um,
Yeah.
their uh, the platform showcases and stuff. So like Nintendo and PlayStation, they've shown off a lot of their stuff there. Um, or during Summer Game Fest slash
Yeah.
the Game Awards. So they've really spread it out and I think that's really worked for them. But I think at this point, at the same time, now we're in a phase where we don't know what's coming from Square,
Yeah.
and I think I almost have wonder if we get some form of a showcase this summer just to show the state of the company of where it's going. But at the same time, it's this isn't really a speculation of a showcase coming. This is just more of it's really sad to see. In one hand, that we'll never get to see the light of day of some games that we probably would have liked.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, oh, and Balan Wonderland, that's another one.
A Balan
You know,
Wonderworld, yeah.
oh, yeah. Um, and so like that, Babylon's Fall, uh, Forspoken, like those were Square was trying to develop new IP,
Yeah.
and every time that they tried to develop new IP in these past few years, it has bombed. And
Yeah.
it is very sad to say because
But it's happened every single time.
right, and there's nothing to go around it. I mean, we're not even talking about foam stars too, what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's
I
a
mean,
little different of a story.
look
But
at look at Avengers, right?
Avengers,
Avengers should
exactly.
have been a slam dunk, even with the
Yep.
live service stuff, and still, right? So like it when they jettisoned their Western studios, I was not at all surprised. I was like,
Yeah.
it seems like this just isn't where it wants to be, and I can kind of understand them not being there. I think you're right. I think what's especially disappointing about this is the stuff that we didn't know about, and potentially like I don't know, like I saw somebody in the comments of the Gamatsu article sort of talking about stuff like Neo the World Ends With You and Harvest Stella
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
man, those were cool projects that like I they seem like passion projects in a
Yeah.
way that something like FF7 Rebirth, like you can tell that the team is passionate about it, but
Hmm.
it's not like the same thing. Um so so it is, I think it is disappointing. Um and I think it stems from a lack of like there's no place to do lower budget games
Hmm.
because like if you're a big company, every game is coming at a cost to you, and you have to justify the cost with profits. And every game that goes on the Switch is competing with console games. They're not just handheld games.
Hmm.
Um, so like back at the DS days, you could justify a game like The World Ends With You
Right.
because it's like, oh, we're on a we're on a DS, it's not going to be able to run something super complex. But nowadays, with the Switch can literally run The Witcher 3 and Skyrim, right? Like, we can get these huge, massive open worlds on
Hmm.
the Switch, so there's no justification anymore for those smaller titles, I think. At least not from Square Enix's
A business
perspective.
perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's disappointing. But yeah, I can kind of I can kind of see it. I kind of understand their thinking. Um,
Hmm.
what I can only hope is that this leads to better games because there are fewer games. I guess
Hmm.
is the if
Yeah.
we only get one new tentpole Square Enix game a year, then that's at least we can say like, okay, the team was given enough time, um
Yeah,
which
exactly.
some studios you can't say that about. So
No, that's very true. So yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the mark. It's like it's disappointing to hear, but you know, knowing that we can, knowing that it could prove beneficial to give more time on these games, I think that's going to, at least for the ones that they do release, I think that's a good business strategy for them.
yeah,
Um, as unfortunate as it is.
I will say I think this does um I think this does act as evidence that they're not going to be acquired by Sony or Microsoft.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Because I think if they were, they wouldn't have done this if
No,
they
they would
were,
have let them deal with the mess.
yeah,
Yeah, as far as like the bookkeepings and what project should get canceled,
yeah,
you know, maybe not approve anymore, but I doubt they would cancel any projects until the next regime would come in.
yeah. Well, or
Um,
yeah, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like, you see what's happening with Bungie right now, and it's like, oh,
Right.
Sony is very clearly making some moves on that front, and yeah, it's just pretty clear that Square Enix does not want is avoiding being acquired by
Hmm.
a different company. Likely not Microsoft, because Microsoft is an American company, and Square Enix is Japanese, so they're probably less likely to acquire them.
Hmm.
If anything, I mean, the like crazy, uh, like the out there prediction is like a merger of some kind with like
Hmm.
Square Enix and Capcom, Square Enix and Sega, like, something like that. Square Enix and Bandai Namco strangely seems like the more likely candidate, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, but even then that seems pretty unlikely, at least at this point. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking a little bit of just stuff that hasn't been in development, you know, what I mean, that has been in development that's been like probably gone.
yeah.
Um, but at the same time, we also got some talk, if you will. Um, I wouldn't call it a leak. I wouldn't call it a any form of news. It's just more of rumors, but it's been bringing up some bringing up some interesting topics with this, and this all kind of stemmed from a known leaker of
Yeah.
sorts that's pretty big in as far as the Marvel community goes. Um, and if you ask me, I really don't trust this source, to be honest with you, for several reasons, which I'm sure we'll go into. But it's more of it's gained some traction, and
Yeah.
you know, uh, I think it's entirely all the stuff that's been talked about, very possible and kind of a little obvious to me. But the it is interesting to hear talks of it, without it being officially announced just yet, and that's with Kingdom Hearts. We got some more Kingdom Hearts. I see. I don't even want to call it news, but
Yeah, you don't
more
want to call it news.
more Kingdom Hearts talk. And basically, there's rumors that a movie is in development over at Disney, that they're creating a Kingdom Hearts movie, uh, and yeah, I mean, I'm trying to tiptoe, not diving in too much before I actually talk about exactly what is uh, being talked about.
Yeah.
Uh, but we got that, and then also Page 4 being released in 2024. I mean, not 2024, but in 2025. To me, that especially is really obvious. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I mean anybody could say that, and
anybody could say exactly.
I would
Yeah, I
think
mean,
like, okay, yeah, there's like a really good chance of that. Like, I
like
don't think, yeah,
there's still just a glimmer of small hope that it could be in 2024. Okay, but this realistic expectation is that
yeah,
it's coming out in 2025,
yeah.
at the earliest, right? So, getting that out of my system, let's dive in a little bit more about uh, the movie slash series, because I've been heard
Yeah.
it's been kind of being tossed around as both, because again, these are just talks, but the and then there's also talks that whether or not it's live action or not. So there's quite a few things to unpack here. But
Yeah.
Ezra, you hear this? What are your thoughts on the the possibility of a Kingdom Hearts movie on the horizon?
So I feel like we've been talking about a Kingdom Hearts like a Disney led Kingdom Hearts project for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um and I imagine that one of the struggles with it is the fact that Nomura maintains some of that creative control over the
Mm-hmm.
franchise. So and Nomura being the well-respected creator that he is, I imagine people over at Disney don't want to like step on his toes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Nomura is involved in the Kingdom Hearts series or
Mm-hmm.
movie or whatever, that's a different story. Um, I don't really have there's not a lot of like requirements. I think it would be kind of weird if it was in live action
Mm-hmm.
because
I think you lose the magic a bit.
yeah, I
To
think
be,
you lose the magic, and I think Disney already has live action properties.
yeah.
It doesn't I don't think like the only justification for it would be like if they bring back if they bring back like Emma Stone or no, not
Mm-hmm.
Emma Stone, Emma Watson for Beauty and the
Mm-hmm.
Beast, right? Like if they
Right.
if they were to do like the remake the like Disney remakes as
Mm-hmm.
Worlds and Kingdom Hearts and have that be the like and you could do like the Ewan McGregor Winnie the Pooh movie and stuff like that
Right.
then I can kind of get behind the idea of a live action, even though I'm already not super big on the live action Disney remakes. At least that has some like fun.
Hmm.
That could it could be fun, like Will Smith as Genie interacting with
Absolutely.
a live action Sora, right? Like that could be fun.
Hmm.
I other than, but if that's not the direction they go, I struggle to see the point, I guess. Um yeah, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I think I agree a lot with what you said. As far as even just thinking about like live action movies coming together,
Yeah.
I also think of a box office mind, right? Um, and while there are some that have performed tremendous at the box office, um, there's also the fact of critical acclaim too,
Yeah.
and audience perception of them too. Because I know, like, for instance, The Lion King, right?
Yeah.
I think The Lion King was probably it was hugely successful, but it was really regarded as something that I don't think a lot of people really like. Oh my god, this is better than the original version, or that a lot of people were taken aback from the fact that the the CG animation to it was too realistic as far as that goes. And I think the Lion King live action remake is the best metaphor for a Kingdom Hearts movie.
Yeah.
It just would not feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The um even more so. I, because I'll admit I was excited for the Lion King and enjoyed my experience seeing the Lion King. I'm not saying it's a bad movie or it's that it was a bad version. It wasn't. Um, but with that being said, and I'd probably have the same feelings to Kingdom Hearts if they did it that route. But you could do so much more with the animation, and
Yeah.
you know if this is a project separate from Nomura, like, and you try to recreate that magic of the first game or some variation of it, of like, hey, we're going to mash up a couple titles and make it into a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have some overarching narrative about the Heartless and stuff. They could do that route, and I think it would be pretty safe. You know,
Yeah.
and I think you would get a much bigger success. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you're still. It's not saying that animated projects aren't big money makers, because they absolutely are in the box office.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse last year, huge numbers, you know,
Huge.
and and TMNT. I haven't seen it, but I know that I got huge acclaim for it. So I mean, it's not like it's.
Yeah.
I don't see why they would do anything but an animated project for
That's
Kingdom Hearts.
yeah. I agree with that, and I also think I imagine they want Nomura to be a part of the project,
Yeah.
and I imagine Nomura is smart enough to know that unless he is specifically cooking something with a live
Mm-hmm.
action Kingdom Hearts thing, unless it's like he has an idea and it's
Yeah.
like in his head the most brilliant idea ever, he's going to stick with Kingdom Hearts as we know it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as we would recognize it, because Kingdom Hearts is kind of moving into photorealism, and even
Yeah.
that is a very stylized version of photorealism.
Exactly.
It's sort of the Final Fantasy version of photorealism. So we're, I don't know. I think I I have I think there's a universe where we get a Kingdom Hearts series, but again, I just feel like we've been talking about it for so long at
Yeah.
this point that
Well, I think it's the most realistic that it is a series and not a movie.
yeah,
Because the the game inherently works better as a series than a movie. Like as far as there's so much to unpack
yeah,
with those games, and that's not even talking about the lore. That's
yeah,
just talk about that's just the structure of it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And it, as far as a series, I can absolutely see them doing it. Now, the only way I can see them doing a movie if Nomura's cooking, like if Nomura's involved and they're doing a movie and it's not live action, it's got to be animated. I'm telling you, it's going to be animated. I could see them doing a Advent Children / Kingslave type of style where it's somewhat connected to
sure,
whatever they're developing right now. Gets a theatrical run, but it's not like a wide theatrical run.
yeah,
I think that's very realistic.
sure,
Um,
yeah, like Kingsglaive, like
exactly.
maybe I just pitching, right? Like maybe Verum Rex is a movie.
Exactly. And just
And
something to test the
yeah,
waters. You know what I mean?
yeah. I could see that.
Uh,
I actually would
get
be super
some.
down for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, get some famous Disney actors in there too, just
Yeah.
for the star power too. Like you'll get some traction. You know, I think
Yeah.
it'll be successful. Like it would be successful.
Yeah,
But
I think like a hyper realistic looking animated movie like
mhm,
that, I think it would do, especially if they were like oh, we have Spider-Man and Darth Vader, something like
exactly.
that. I think that would get some butts in seats.
Yeah.
But
But again, it's like you said though. This isn't the first time we've had this conversation.
yeah,
You know, um, and this source is kind of synonymous for the most obvious, I think, leaks he likes to do for
yeah,
like as far as Marvel, and then some of them are kind of a little far fetched, and they never end up coming true. I think his credibility is very 50-50, to be honest
yeah,
with you, and I think he might have some source that does show that it is in development. I kind of do believe that there's something being tossed around. I
yeah,
don't I don't take much to his credibility of that it's specifically this coming into fruition. Like or even
yeah,
like I really don't believe the whole like he has a source that says Kingdom Hearts is coming out in 2025, right?
yeah,
You know what I mean? I mean that's so obvious that it's like I
yeah.
don't even feel like it's anything to report on.
It's
But
it's it's barely false hope is what
yeah,
I feel. Like I barely feel false hope. The only thing I feel is like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling too. like
because if he's right, he's right. But if he's wrong, it
it
just
it, it, it doesn't it doesn't
right. It
matter.
It doesn't matter because things change along the way as far as development goes. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's annoying. I hope I I'm interested to see if this KH series movie whatever ever happens, because again, we this isn't the first time we've talked about this, and it probably won't be the last. And there was a Saturday morning cartoon in development at Disney, for Disney Channel at one point. I know that, but that got canned, and I imagine they don't want to have to go through that again. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
No, I agree. And, this, as far as Kingdom Hearts 4 goes, we're going to know soon. Like,
Yeah.
This isn't a trailer watch segment or anything, but it's like either it shows up in June or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, we got to rewind. We got to adjust our clocks, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're getting to a threshold that I think that it is going to be. We're going to start having the conversation of it's probably not coming out in 2025 either, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so we're going to find out soon, and I would say June is that threshold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, the reason why June's such a big area of threshold is it's Summer Games Fest season, right?
Yep.
And we just got another announcement of this is going to be the time where we're going to be getting announcements of when all the showcases are
Yeah.
for the people that are like outside of the main event of Summer Games Fest. And Xbox is doing their big showcase on June 9th, just a few days after the big Summer Games Fest showcase. But with anything, Summer Games Fest is trying to be more of what E3 used to be, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of Summer Games Fest when it was even created, right? So, that's more like the kickoff, type of showcase, Summer Games Fest. So, Xbox is the first to announce their showcase. They announced theirs last year, and honestly, if I'm not mistaken, theirs was 2 weeks prior to Summer Games Fest in
Was
May.
it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't remember
and
that.
I think PlayStation's was in May as well, which I remember being caught a little off guard by that. I'm like, oh, really? May's not usually the time for when things come in as far as the showcases go.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I really love June as far as game showcases go. I'm looking forward to seeing what Xbox has to the table.
Yeah. It's a big year for them.
So I guess my thing is, how are you looking forward to Xbox's showcase? And if so, is there a particular game that you're looking for with it?
So something to note about Xbox's showcase, they're having the showcase, and then immediately following that showcase is a direct for an unknown title. They are not saying they're having they're having a blank direct. So, it'll be revealed during Xbox's show, but we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. We have some hints based on the graphic that they use, but I don't know. It's probably it. If I had to guess, probably Gears 6, because I think we've already heard about Gears 6. But I could be wrong about that. It could be Perfect Dark. It could be Halo for all we know. It'd be kind of weird if it was Halo. It could be an Activision title. It could be a Bethesda game. It could be literally anything. So, there's that. I also think I'm looking forward to Xbox's showcase just because it'll be the first one. It'll be the first proper first party Xbox show since they started releasing on PlayStation.
Yeah.
We've had IDs at Xbox. We've had smaller things here and there. This will be the first proper big time showcase. And I think I think this year is definitely an inflection point for Xbox because they've started releasing on PlayStation. Their console business is down. Things are just not the same anymore. And, there's a really big possibility that they pivot really hard into basically becoming a third party that also manufactures hardware.
Which is an interesting phrase in and of itself, but
yeah,
I guess it's possible.
It's possible, and we'll see, right? Nobody's sure about anything at this point. The only thing that's certain is that Nintendo's going to keep doing their thing. Even PlayStation is up in the air right now. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, not to stray too far from the path, but that is also a possibility too.
Yeah.
Sorry. In that PlayStation could just not show up at all.
Yeah.
They could do a state of play, and maybe they showcase third-party stuff. But as far as their first parties go, we might not get anything this year.
Well, and we probably won't. They've said as much.
Yeah. So why have a showcase as far as PlayStation goes? So, I don't know. But go continue with what you were saying.
I just... what I think is so... What I think people need to understand is Xbox is going to be fine as long as they want to stay in the business, because Microsoft is one of the biggest companies on the planet.
Yeah.
They will be fine as long as they want to be fine.
Right, even without developing more consoles. Right.
Yeah. The Xbox brand is not going away unless somebody says it's not worth it anymore, and that's it, right? Yeah. And even then, it would take a lot for the Xbox brand to die, because frankly, there's just so much stuff, right? There's just so much stuff that's happening in in Xbox right now. It would take a lot to bring it down. So
Right.
so I think that like, you know, whether or not Microsoft stays in the business of developing hardware, which historically hasn't been a massive success for them. They're a software company first
Yeah.
and foremost. I think, you know, whether or not they stay in the hardware business, that's up in the air.
Hmm.
But I think this showcase will provide some information just based on the announcements alone. I think it will provide some information on where at least Phil Spencer's head is at, because
Hmm.
right now it's all kind of muddy and unknown. And I think this will be hopefully this will be a clarifying moment for Xbox. It's the one showcase where I'm interested in the reveals, not because I'm interested in like what people will be playing, but
Hmm.
more interested in it from a like, oh, here's what the creators are thinking kind of thing. Here's what the execs are kind of cooking up for their business strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the showcase itself, I'm looking forward to it. Um, and it is exciting to see that they are teasing something big. But I think this is there's few times in the year where I will actually sit down to watch an Xbox showcase. Usually, the one in June is the one that I 9 times out of 10 will watch. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think we're gonna. I think it's going to be a good summer, nonetheless. Whatever happens with Xbox and PlayStation, I think this year is going to be a big year as far as third-party announcements. So, and that's just me speculating. So I can't wait for it. Um, with that said, Ezra, you have a big game coming up,
I do.
and they just announced their showcase.
Well, they
Um,
had their
oh, they
showcase.
had their showcase. Sorry,
Yeah.
they had their showcase, and they just announced the release date for uh, for Metaphor. Uh, re, I'm a butcher. It is it Refantia? Oh, okay, all right. Refantasio? Okay.
Refantasio.
Refantasio. Okay, all right.
I I
Cool.
I I hope that's how you actually pronounce it. That's how I'm. That's a yeah. Metaphor Refantasio. It's the it's Atlas's next big RPG. I guess after Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. But that's a re-release, so it's kind of different. Yeah, game looks really good. It looks like, it's created by the Persona developers, or by
Mm-hmm.
it's the creators of Persona. I don't know if it's the actual team. It's got the same sort of uh, UI stuff that Persona 5 and Persona 3 Reload have going on. Um, and yeah, it's just really exciting to see. It looks really clean. It looks really cool. Um, it's exciting to see Atlas make a new IP. It's exciting to see them creating entirely brand new monsters, because we haven't had that in a while. We haven't had a game with entirely new monsters in forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, game comes out on October 11th. I'm really excited. It's sort of Atlas's anniversary game. Um, I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. It's kind of the game that uh, I would say it's after FF7 Rebirth, I would say it's my most anticipated game of the year. Um, Mostly just because the idea of it is really exciting. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out, and hopefully it turns out to be another hit. It would be cool to get more. It would be cool to have like the sort of urban fantasy
Mm.
uh, stuff with Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, um, and then also the like actual high fantasy stuff with Metaphor, because Metaphor seems to be they want this to be a franchise. It seems like they want it to be a big success. So yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, I
it's
mean,
gonna be on Game Pass too, I think. So
mm,
that's another
yeah,
another dub for Game Pass for sure.
right. And I think it's helpful for it to be on Game Pass too. Um, as far as exposure wise, I am very much looking forward to it. As far as hearing your thoughts on it, because the just it's always interesting when when Atlas comes around for Ezra and everything. So, um, yeah, I mean, I gotta look into it. I admittedly I have not looked into it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to as we get closer and closer what your thoughts are, and you know,
Yeah,
because there have been times where that is the winner of the year for
yeah,
for Ezra. So
yeah.
it's
There's
definitely something to put on our radars because you know, well, that could be a good guess as to what his
for
game of the year is going to be.
for
So,
instance, uh, Persona 5 Royal narrowly
uh,
lost to Final Fantasy 7 Remake, um, the year it came out.
oh, gotcha.
So at least for me, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for other people, it might not have. So
yeah, I forgot that
uh,
was the same year.
yeah, yeah. Persona 5, the original Persona 5 came
Right.
out before that, but Royal, which is an excellent game,
Hmm.
excellent re-release, came out the same year as remake. So this is kind of I don't want to say Metaphor is Persona 6 because it's not, but
Hmm.
I will say I think it's like it's kind of the like it feels like kind of the next Persona in a way. It feels like that kind of like that's what's coming up. Yeah, and I'm just really excited for it. So we'll see. Has a chance to usurp, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, only time will tell, and I think that it could. Yeah, I'm just more excited to see where where it's gonna lie in your rankings of everything.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me. Um, with that being said, let's move on to our final like actual news topic here, and um, th- so we've been on hiatus for a bit, mostly because of Final Fantasy VII,
Yep.
and you know I think it was a little bit of longer hiatus than expected, but uh, it was definitely worth it. But one of the things that has been going on outside of Final Fantasy VII, but still within the Final Fantasy realm, is that Yoshi P has been on fire of late as
Yep.
far as what he's been cooking. The kitchen has been taking orders and well feeding them. Okay, there's the Final Fantasy 16 DLC that just came out, which I'm currently going through right now, and I'm not going to talk about that right now until I'm finished about it. But there's also Yoshi P was in recently in a he did a showcase, I believe, for Final Fantasy 14 for the next DLC on that. And one of the big things that he talked about was they moved the release date
Yep.
to coincide to uh, move away from the Elden Ring DLC release.
Yep.
But he also loves challenging gamers and says you have 1 week.
You have 1 week.
You have 1 week to get it all done, which I mean I haven't played Elden Ring. It's still on like my bucket list of stuff to play, but I know it's difficult. I know it's a difficult game, and as far as Elden Ring goes, if this was like 5 years ago, yeah, I'd be probably able to beat that DLC within a week. I don't know. That's some high expectations. What do you think? Do you like the challenge? Do you
Um.
not? Do you think it's too close?
Well, yeah, I have a different dilemma.
Mhm.
I have kind of the same but different because Elden Ring DLC comes out on the 14th. Uh, yeah, no, wait, hold on, I have to look something up. Elden Shadow of the Erd Tree releases. Why does this IGN article not say? Okay, it launches June 21st. Yeah. So, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance comes out on the
Oh yeah,
14th.
that's right. I forgot about that.
Um, and that game is very long, just based on an initial playthrough of Shin Megami Tensei 5. So, and that's a week. That's a week before the Elden Ring DLC. Um,
Hmm.
but we'll see. I you know I Elden Ring is such an interesting like thing because it's very possible to make the game as short as you want it to be. Kind of like I can probably I can probably do a playthrough of that game in like 10 hours. 15 if I'm taking my time.
Okay.
Um and like what they're describing is that like the DLC is going to be about the size of the starting area, which is one of the bigger areas, but it's also not that big. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long Elden Ring's DLC is gonna be, but I'm looking forward to it, and it's good to see some of these games kind of getting out of the way. Um,
Mhm.
uh,
Especially seeing how your February was.
Caleb is
What?
not coming through.
Oh, can you? Oh, okay. Hold on 1 second.
Um, Um, yeah, I don't know. I think I imagine Final Fantasy 14 players are grateful, um, solely because that gives them a little bit more time to play Elden Ring before their new big DLC comes out, because Dawn Trail is going to be huge. Um, okay, I'm going to do this.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. There we go.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah. So I was just talking about how Dawn Trail is going to be pretty big for Final Fantasy 14 fans, and it's good to
Mm-hmm.
have Elden Ring kind of have that get out of the way of uh, Elden Ring, so people have time. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I see. I'm not sure which point in which I got muted, to be honest with you. Um, so I apologize if I'm kind of repeating a little bit, but the I forgot what I was going to say. As far as the DLC goes, we've had times where things just all release at once, and it's like,
yeah,
what do you do in that timeline? So, like you said, it is really nice to see games kind of moving out of the way, even though they have every right to stay there. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's pretty cool. Uh, you know,
yeah,
um, with that, that's the end of our little news section. Um, and now we get to talk about a little bit of what we've been in the workings on. So,
yeah.
as far as stuff that I have to review, I haven't finished FF16's DLC yet. So I'm kind of like, I'm not going to talk about that. But Ezra, you've been working on a game since Final Fantasy VII Rebirth,
Yep.
and with that, it was a big release,
It
and I've
was.
been very, very excited to hear your thoughts on this because, like I said, one of the determiners was whether or not is this day one, is this buy in a month, is this buy on sale. So basically, I'm more curious. What was your thoughts on Stellar Blade?
Oh, do I have thoughts on Stellar Blade? So the first thing I should say is I think it's a good game. I think it's a perfectly decent experience. It looks great, sounds great. I think that the gameplay gets a little stale. I'm gonna say
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's kind of a um, it's going for that Dark Souls, Sekiro sort of. I would say it gets pretty close to like a Jedi Fallen Order, where it's more about like parrying and perfect dodges and stuff like that. Um, which so it's not like Near Automata in that sense, because Near is much more about like flashy combos and moving fast
Mm-hmm.
um, and stuff like that. So I think overall, I think the package is great. I didn't do everything. I didn't do all of the side quests. Apparently, there are like areas that only unlock with side quests and stuff.
Hmm.
There is a secret ending that I looked up the secret ending just because I wanted to make sure I wasn't gonna like rip the story apart just because I hadn't seen the
Right.
secret ending. Um, but I don't feel like I don't feel like that would have been the case anyways. But yeah, I felt like the gameplay got kind of stale towards the end to the point where I was like I was getting kind of sick of just like learning bosses over and over again. Like at some
Hmm.
point that loop starts to get tiring if it's all just parrying. Cuz that it's satisfying. It's something like Kingdom Hearts for me
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, I get to do this big combo and I get to try to optimize my damage. And with
Right.
Stellar Blade, maybe it was just because I wasn't doing enough side content, but I didn't feel like the side content was worth it,
Hmm.
generally speaking. To because there isn't like a lot in the way of damage upgrades, and if there are, they're not very noticeable. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I would have different thoughts if I had done a lot of the side content, but I did feel like the gameplay was pretty stale and engaging with more of it didn't seem very attractive to me. Um, but I know people have differing opinions on that. Um, I will say the story really is just a hollow reflection of Nier Automata in a lot of ways, down to some of the reveals and some of the like. I don't know how best to describe it, other than like they have kind of an interesting world that feels like it at least sets itself apart from Nier in some way. Um, but even then, there's just not enough there, and the characters feel so bland. Um,
Oof.
yeah, it's like because even a character like Lily, who is theoretically supposed to be like the big like bubbly, you know, the life of the group kind of thing,
Hmm.
even she feels like kind of muted in comparison. And Eve has some moments of characterization and some some strong moments overall, but even she feels a little flat comparatively. Um, and I mean, Adam, like, oof, that is a rough character. I, I there were there were some interesting reveals, and the world building seems solid enough to support a sequel, and
Uh,
I'd be interested in a sequel just to see what they do with it.
right.
um but it's not. I don't know. There's this game is very much. It feels like it's aiming at all of the wrong things when it comes to like its inspirations. It's like it's looking to Near Automata and it's saying like what I want is the story and the aesthetic,
Hmm.
but what I'm gonna ditch is the gameplay and the soul almost.
Mm.
And it feels like like part of Automata's appeal is the like is in the gameplay variety and in the um and in just the amount of heart that game has. And so for Stellar Blade to feel like such a it feels like a pale imitation in a way that like because I've been thinking about it like because Lies of P, if you don't remember that game, it was the the sort of
Right.
Pinocchio Bloodborne, right? That was the pitch for that game. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, Lies of P it's a Souls like where the focus is on parrying and the um and the main gameplay loop doesn't change, right? Like that's the whole
Hmm.
game is in that gameplay loop. Not unlike Stellar Blade. And I was thinking about why I was able to kind of why I enjoyed Lies of P so much as to do a second playthrough of it, even though it's a much longer game. And I think part of it is just in the like I think part of it is that it's just got so much heart and you can tell that the devs really cared about that specific part about it. Um, Whereas with Stellar Blade, it feels like it's just trying to imitate these really popular things. Um, and you can tell that there is a lot of love for those
Hmm.
things, but just because you love something doesn't mean you can imitate it properly. And
Right.
yeah, I don't know. I just, especially with the story falling as flat as it did, um except for like again, there were a couple of reveals and a few moments where I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And they're actually doing something with this story. Aside from those moments, the rest of the story is just entirely flat and kind of boring. Um,
Wow.
and it's a shame. And I hate to say it because I was really looking forward to this game. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. Um,
You know, it's to me it's shocking a little bit. I mean, it is and it isn't shocking because I know a couple months ago I was concerned when I
yeah.
saw the gameplay of it. So I guess I'm not too shocked, but I'm. I guess is it like this in this regard? I wonder. Is this like a forspoken feeling I'm having? I wonder. Where
Ooh.
I was like looking really forward to it. To be honest, like I had this on my radar. I was rooting for it. I was rooting for it, and then post like right before launch, I decided I'm not going to pick up the game day one. I'm gonna wait and hear what people think about it. Kind of the same scenario, not gonna lie, but I it's interesting to hear your opinion, and you know, most of the time I'm going to fall in line with your opinion, and I already was kind of feeling that when I watched the gameplay of it. It is interesting to see. It is still getting great reviews,
Yeah.
from what I've seen. Uh, Great as in good. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think I've like it's not getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth numbers
No.
as far as critical acclaim, but it's. I guess maybe that's the point. Is like some people are deeming it as just good, you know, and that's probably what I'm going to feel like with this game. So, as far as when I said in the beginning, is this a day one? Is this a wait a few weeks? Or is this buy on sale? Right? Um, to answer that question, I really wanted to wait and hear what your thoughts were on the game as far as that goes. Because if it was like, Caleb, you got to stop everything and do it now, absolutely would have been buy it within a week type of situation. But,
Yeah.
you know, would I check it out on sale? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still very interested in this game um, because of its inspiration. Like it's heavily inspired off of all those games that you said that
Yeah.
I've enjoyed, and so it's up my alley. But yeah, just very interesting to see. I mean,
I hate to it sucks cuz I do feel like I'm a little alone on this.
I wouldn't say you're alone. To be honest with you, I've seen some reviews that have been the combat falls after a little bit. Like everything that you dove into, I've seen criticisms of. Um, but I also understand, considering that there has been some pretty high praise for it.
Yeah. I well, and I want to reemphasize it's a good game. I don't think like I don't believe in a fully functioning game that I can play from start to finish that works and has fundamentally decent gameplay. I don't believe in those types of games being bad. So I think
Uh-huh.
it's a good game. I just didn't like it as much as I was hoping to, and I think it
Yeah.
has some pretty fundamental flaws that hold it back. So I will echo what others have said. I think I'm really looking forward to Shift Up's next game. Um, because I hope they kind of take that criticism that it's so close to it's it's kind of flying too close to the sun a little bit. Um, and I hope they're able to take that criticism, go their own way, and make something truly excellent. Because I think part of this was just they got lost in trying to imitate something that is kind of hard to imitate. It's kind of Automata is kind of lightning in a
Yeah.
bottle in a lot of ways, and so imitating it seems kind of like a fool's errand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. Um, so that kind of was there any more thoughts that you
No,
had
that's
on
pretty
Stellar
much
Blade?
everything I had to say.
Okay. Um, so I would say that wraps up as far as the video games that we've been playing. Now, there's been something that we didn't talk about on the podcast, but we talked about outside of the podcast of like, hey, this is what our book club's going to be. Just so happened that we got that done a lot faster than I think we even expected to.
Yeah.
Um, for the both of us. So with that, I guess this is our announcement of what this month's topic is, while also saying this is our review for it too at the same time. So yeah, we decided one of the things that we talked about with the podcast and especially with the book club type of situation is that when we're talking like this is a mostly primarily a video game podcast, right? But there's going to be times where we're going to branch out a little bit. We'll still kind of keep on theme. It's not going to like be too far off the rails with it, but um for instance, we're going to be talking about a TV show, but it's based off of a video game series.
Yep.
And so it was pretty big, and it, as a matter of fact, Ezra, I don't know if you saw this. It is the number one streaming show for Paramount Plus, I believe, just in general, from its first weekend alone.
Yeah, it's
So
their number one original show.
yeah, which is huge,
That
considering
is
like
massive.
they had, they have Paramount's had Yellowstone, uh, Paramount has um, Star Trek shows,
Yep.
um, and then like the Criminal Minds reboot. Like, there's just like some big names that Paramount has had. So,
Yeah.
we got to dive into Knuckles. Uh, what and Knuckles. Oh, how do you even start this topic? Knuckles was a show,
It's a show.
um, and I was really really excited for this show, and I'm sure Ezra was just the same, if not more.
I was
Um,
more excited than you were.
yeah, probably I would say that's a fair bet. Um, and we were bummed because we went to a Sonic concert the week before, and it just didn't quite coincide with the release date, but we were kind of wishing that it did come out so we could watch it together.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I almost wonder. I think to myself, I'm like, what would have happened if we watched it together? Um,
Yeah.
because I feel like this worked out better for us, um, because we
Yeah.
were able to get a warning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I because
if
I
we didn't have
waited.
that warning, I don't know what would have happened. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was seeing I texted you on, I think it was either like Friday or Saturday or whenever, maybe Sunday. And I was just like, man, I'm really scared to watch this cuz I've heard really bad things.
Well, well, it's interesting because that's so you texted me that, and I had watched the first 10. I was like within the first 10 minutes of Knuckles, and I'm like, I am loving this show. It's great, you know. Uh, that just basically announcing that I've started the show, and like, I'm already laughing out loud, and it's and let me preface this. That was peak Knuckles. As far as those first 10 minutes was peak, okay?
Yeah,
Um
the first 10 minutes of that show was definitely the best part of that show.
and when you texted me that, I am really glad you did, because if you had not told me, if you had not warned me, because I didn't read any reviews or anything, I would have been really upset. I would have been pretty mad. But uh because I was warned, it really tampered my expectations a bit,
Yeah.
and I think that really helped as far as the better of it. So, but I'm gonna ask you, Ezra, what was your thoughts on Knuckles? Because I'm really excited to hear what you thought of it.
So, I think it has uh oh, what are my thoughts on Knuckles? I haven't really collected them exactly. I'm going to
First off,
say
when did you finish it?
I finished it like this morning.
Oh wow! Whoa,
Yeah,
man, you're really fresh off the presses on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm really fresh. I feel like the joke of it being, Wade and Knuckles, I think really fits. I think it's
Yeah,
true. I think there's a lot of
it's
truth to it.
100% valid. Yeah.
Um, I think I think it's getting a bit too much hate from the fandom because Knuckles isn't
Hmm.
in enough of it. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. I had a decent time with it.
I
I
think it's very. Oh, go ahead.
I I I will say I think it's so funny that Christopher Lloyd and Stockard Channing
Oh,
are both in this show. Um, Christopher Lloyd as Pachacamac is great casting.
uh-huh.
I'm not gonna.
I
Uh,
see. I was like, I knew he, like, I saw he was in it, and I didn't know if you knew, and I was like, oh, do I say it? Do I not say it? Do I say it? Do I not say it? And I was
yeah,
going back and forth the whole time. But
I caught it. I caught it when I had to look it up. I had to like make sure that it was actually him. But I was like, oh, is that Christopher Lloyd? But then I heard about Stockard Channing being in the show, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Because I know her from The West Wing.
gotcha.
And she's a beloved actress.
Uh huh.
But to have sort of, and and Idris Elba on top of that as Knuckles,
Oh yeah.
it's so funny to have that much talent attached to what is ultimately a very inconsequential show. Um,
Hmm.
we get the only thing that I can the only thing that I feel like has a lot of significance to the lore
Hmm.
is the fact that they specifically talk about how Gunn used to be like a government shadow op,
Yeah.
basically,
Yep. Yep.
and
That worked under
that worked under Robotnik,
Robotnik. So
and
yeah,
so
I would agree with that.
and so we'll get the like. I assume they'll talk about Gerald Robotnik in Sonic 3 because that's who
Hmm.
created Shadow. Yeah, I don't know. Like that's kind of the only thing that I pulled from it in terms of like Sonic lore.
Hmm.
Uh, the other thing I guess is they've confirmed, I guess, because they really needed to confirm this. Uh, they sort of retconned out the possibility of Sonic 06 ever happening in this universe, which I don't think we needed to have that confirmed, but
Hmm.
because Knuckles is the Flames of Disaster,
Oh.
that's a thing from Sonic 06. That's the so Knuckles using that is kind of confirmation that and the demon looks a little bit like Iblis from Sonic 06, so it's not um to me that was like, okay, we're never going to get that sequence of events happening in
Hmm.
this world. Maybe Silver shows up in a different capacity,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, first I will say this wasn't damaging to Knuckles at all.
No.
I don't think this show damaged or hurt the brand in any kind, if that makes sense. I think the biggest sin this show has is the marketing.
Yeah.
I really do think it's the marketing because I mean, clever on the marketing because they did a good job in roping you in as far as the show and what it would be like. The problem was it wasn't like that, right? Um, if this was approached more with the idea that this was going to be like a buddy road trip show,
Yeah.
I think a lot more people would have been on board with the show because that's essentially what this show it not essentially it is what this show was. So, you know, basically this is all this whole entire show is all over a bowling tournament,
Yeah.
right?
Which is a
And it's
funny
got some like
concept.
right, it's a funny concept and it's I could see this being pitched as a great idea. Like I really do think that. I like the whole the whole concept of the show I think works. The problem is its title character and you know it really it was a show about Knuckles, but it was not just about Knuckles, right? Um and I guess I don't know how you would call the show if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
aside from doing it as Wade and Knuckles. But the I because my expectations were quickly adjusted at the right time, um, I didn't find myself too upset as to the show's direction. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that my biggest frustrations with the show was that after we get done with the first episode,
Yeah.
anything that was action focused, Knuckles wasn't really a part of.
Yeah,
Or
we
he
didn't
was
get
a
a lot
part
of
of in a
Knuckles
limited
action.
quantity, right?
Yeah.
And and that could be for budget reasons, and I understand that. But at the same time, if it's for budget reasons, why are we doing moments where and again, this is not saying that this was a bad sequence. I enjoyed the sequence. I had a lot of fun time with it. But like why are we doing a full on musical episode that is like you know what I mean? Like it's the full
Yeah.
episode and it's full of special effects. I mean, it's not supposed to look great, but that's a part of the allure of it. I mean, it's still going to cost a pretty penny. You know, I feel like there was moments where in this show they were blowing effects budgets unnecessarily at times, if that makes sense. Like I would have preferred to have seen more of Knuckles in action than some of the choices that they did as far as effects wise go.
Yeah.
Um, but I can excuse it for the type of show it was, and that's not really my big gripes of the show. I think one of the big gripes that I actually had was the like essentially the villain arcs of the show. That one really kind of bothered me a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the two mercenaries are in the beginning of the show, like they make a big deal out of these mercs and everything, and they're switching sides. Like all that stuff is great, but we really don't know. They don't do a good job of actually explaining, at least right away, who these characters are.
Yeah,
They kind of just they kind
it's
of just
very
pop
random.
in and they have like a vendetta. You know what I mean? And they really don't. There's no establishment of character for them. They just kind of go from didn't exist to 100 real quick. You know what I mean? And as far as a character arc, I think that really hindered them because for the first few episodes, I felt myself being like, oh, these are your just typical henchmen characters that are really like not non-consequential to the plot. Like we know our big bad, but like these characters are they they don't mean much, right?
Yeah,
And no, they stuck to the end and end up having a decent story arc. Um, sorry, like a decent backstory that I felt like they could have explored more on. Um, to really like establish stakes. I
yeah,
think that was a lack of establishment of stakes. Um, and the biggest sin they do is they literally sideline them too.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there's a point in which after the second episode they they don't show up until the final episode. You
yeah,
know, it's all just a it turns into a bunch of random bounty hunters coming after, you know what I mean, Knuckles. Like
yeah,
we just ditched the whole entire villain plots and then did like villain of the week type of situation. And then all of a sudden we're back into the final episode and you haven't even established your main villain at all, right?
yeah,
And and his backstory is a really cool concept too. And honestly, it's a shame too because the actor that plays him is a really good actor. Like,
yeah. They had talent on this show.
right. they had they had something going, but I think there was a conflict of really what the show was supposed to be, you
Yeah,
know? Um and had they have just chosen one route, I would have loved either way. You know what I mean? Um
yeah,
and it's also I do have one gripe. I do have like one big gripe as far as like the finale goes.
hmm.
The Now one of the biggest criticisms that a lot of people had going into the show was that it looks like they were with the main villain kind of retreading the same arc Robotnik had in the first Sonic movie.
Yep,
Um and the finale did not help that case
nope.
because that final battle was almost 1-to-1 how that final battle in the original Sonic movie was.
Yeah,
um, as far as the choreography of the fight, if that makes sense.
and the way it plays out too, like
Yeah,
the whole like Wade gives Knuckles a speech and Knuckles wakes up from being defeated, and then yeah, yeah,
and one can argue that the Sonic games, they have some similar bosses as far as like in the during the 2D era, the original
yeah,
Sonic games, you know what I mean? That type of situation. Well, one could argue that, and that's fair, but you're also in a television medium too, right?
yeah,
And there's a way to there's a way to go about it that could still keep in within the style that they did and even the same motivations that they did. But I felt like they could have done a little better as far as how that final battle played out.
yeah.
And another weird thing is, and I know this was because of budget, it was really weird to see nobody on the streets. That was weird to me. That kind of took me out of it a little bit. Like, we know people are in peril, like within the arena or whatever for the, like within the bowling alley, but like they don't really cut to anybody's perspective outside where actually where this is all actually going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Now I'm kind of really like grasping at the smaller things, but for me, this show I really enjoyed. Right? Um, I think there's some weird choices with like character arcs, but aside from that, it didn't damage anything for Knuckles.
No.
And I would love to see more of. I think Idris Elba does a perfect Knuckles, like,
Yeah.
and even walking away from this show, I do think to myself, I'm like, it is really cool to see that Knuckles got a little bit of a spotlight outside of just the Sonic universe of movies, because we would not have been able to really. I don't think we would have been really able to examine that,
Yeah.
to follow up on Knuckles' arc from the second Sonic movie going into Sonic 3 when Shadow's there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Knuckles would have
So,
is definitely going to take a back seat to Shadow.
yeah,
Which honestly fair.
right.
But it's good to see. I hope, the success of Knuckles has been pretty high. I hope it provides more incentive for Paramount to really lean into the Sonic
Right.
stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. I I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the other thing I will say is um I feel like it ends kind of abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, the abrupt ending did take me out. I was like,
yeah.
wait, what? I
Yeah,
was
like I
like,
was expecting at least like another Sonic cameo or something, right?
yeah, or at
Some
least a
kind of,
return to home.
yeah,
You
at
know what I
least
mean?
they go home, something like that. That really took me out of it. But otherwise, I enjoyed my time watching it. I Is this, what I wanted? No.
Mm-hmm.
But is that necessarily fair to the show? Also no. I I fail to see how it is the worst piece of Sonic media because
No, I don't think so.
I think there are some strong contenders. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a decent time.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like I didn't walk away feeling cheated. Um, I'm I will say I'm just really excited for Sonic 3 at this point. Um, and I'm excited to see what they keep doing because it's clear that they want to keep going.
Yeah.
They want to keep doing. They want to make Sonic into the Sonic cinematic universe, whatever that means. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean
we'll
that.
see.
I think we need to know a little bit more of how much we're diving into Sonic 3
Yeah,
to really see where the franchise is going to go. And yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is a great kickoff to that marketing scheme, to the marketing for Sonic 3.
Yeah.
I think the time is right to release a trailer. I think when that is going to be, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, Knuckles was a pretty fun show, and it it's not damaging. Sorry, I know I keep saying that, but
Mm-hmm.
it really is true. It's not damaging. I think this is a fun adaptation of the series, and I think that it still leaves a very positive taste in the mouth that I trust in what they're going to do with Sonic 3. Like, I have no doubts in my mind, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with Knuckles and how he's going to play into the next movie.
Yeah.
So, with that, that's kind of our final topic.
Oh,
Um,
we did forget to mention
oh,
something.
oh yeah, yeah. We mentioned him a couple of times, but never really actually talked about it. That's a very good point. I actually forgot about that. My bad. Um, yeah, there was another big set of news, and that's Shadow being casted. Um, we finally got the casting for him, and it's the one, the only Keanu Reeves,
Yep.
which I think is pretty cool. I think that
Yeah,
will be a pretty good Shadow, and you know,
I agree.
there's gonna be a lot of memes. Let's just put it
Oh
that
yeah.
way,
Oh yeah. So
and
many
it's already
memes.
started. But it's gonna get, as soon as we get that first trailer, it's gonna be all hands on deck for Keanu. It's that's a really fun casting.
Yeah. I
What,
agree. I
how do
think
you
it's
feel about it?
perfect.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who was gunning for Hayden Christensen.
Uh huh. Me too.
But I'm not going to be mad about Keanu Reeves. I think that's also pretty perfect casting. So yeah, I'm just I just want to see this movie at this point.
Yeah. The weight is kind of starting to. I think they just knocked it so well out of the park with two
They
that
did.
it's making the wait really long.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, like the end of Sonic 1, I was like, oh, they did a great job. I loved it. I'm very content with that. It's great we're getting a sequel, but I'm very content. And then and then the sequel came out, and yeah, it
Yeah.
they're cooking. They're cooking.
They are in fact cooking.
But that is the kind of the last of our topics there, and you know that was kind of our book club. We haven't decided on what our what our next one is going to be, and it this time around it'll be something that I give to Ezra. So I'm kind of thinking on it, and yeah. So yeah, do you have any more final thoughts or anything, Ezra?
Nope. I'm just looking forward to what we have next.
Yep.
You know, this we kind of have a month to kind of settle down and relax before the big news boom of June.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'm sorry I like that.